Hello, I'm John Foster, and I'm a medical doctor who does Social Security disability exams. And today I'm going to be talking about narcissistic personality disorder in disability patients. As usual, everything I say represents my own opinions based on my own study and experience, and not those of the Social Security Administration or any other medical body. Now, when I began doing Social Security disability exams in 2017, I wasn't prepared for the sort of patients I'd be seeing. I found that there was a certain group of patients, a minority but a significant minority, who were very disagreeable and extremely difficult to deal with. After a lot of study and research, I've come to the conclusion that these patients are suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. So what is narcissistic personality disorder? Well, it's one of several personality disorders. Personality disorders are maladaptive ways of behavior that are persistent, that tend to present early in life, in childhood or the early teenage years. Unlike neuroses, where the patient feels bad and knows that they have a problem, folks with personality disorders tend to feel that they're fine. It's everyone else who has a problem. And if everyone else just behaved the way they wanted them to, things would be fine. Thus, folks with personality disorders tend to be extremely resistant to psychotherapy. In narcissistic personality disorder, people have an exaggerated sense of self-importance. They feel that they're special. The rules don't apply to them. The rules apply to everyone else, but because they're so special, they deserve special consideration. They also feel entitled. They ought to get what others don't get simply because they're so special. They have an excessive need for admiration, especially admiration that is not justified due to gifts or achievement. They have diminished empathy, and here I need to make a detour and explain my concepts of empathy and sympathy, which I feel are often mixed up in the literature. Empathy is the ability to recognize others' feelings. Sympathy is taking on others' feelings as one's own. Doctors need to have a great deal of empathy. We need to be able to recognize how our patients are feeling. But too much sympathy in a doctor is harmful because doctors see so much sorrow and suffering that if we take it all on as our own, we'll become incapacitated and unable to help others. Finally, people with narcissistic personality disorder often exhibit psychological abuse of others. They can be manipulative, they can be demanding, and at times they can even be physically abusive. They tend to be arrogant. Because they're so special, they must be right in any discussion. Also, they can be interpersonally exploitive. They feel that since they're so special, others exist to serve them. They should get what they want at the expense of others. Now, similarly to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, bipolar disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder, narcissistic personality disorder is way overdiagnosed these days. It's a fad. People love calling folks they don't like narcissists. So I'd like to explain what narcissistic personality disorder is not. First of all, it is not having self-esteem. Everyone needs some self-esteem. It is not pride in achievement. Pride in achievement is normal and is not narcissistic personality disorder. For example, I have a friend, 40 years old, who's been into fitness and athletics all his life, and in the past year, he got into doing handstands. And he sent me several videos showing how his progress, for example, when he began doing handstand push-ups. That's quite the achievement, and most people will never be able to do a handstand push-up in their life. So being proud of that, an achievement that took a lot of work and dedication, is not narcissism. Likewise, being proud of natural gifts, such as being born with fantastic looks, is not narcissism. However, claiming achievements or talents that one does not really possess is often a manifestation of narcissism. For example, if LeBron James were to say, "I'm a great basketball player," that would be simply a fact due to his innate gifts and his hard work. However, if I were to say I'm a great basketball player and I've never been on a competitive basketball team, that would be an example of exaggeration and likely narcissism. Now, I've said that narcissists feel as though they're special, but some people really are special. Some people are more talented, better looking, more conscientious, harder working, richer than others. And being pleased and having self-esteem and being proud of one's gifts and achievements, again, is not narcissism. So why do so many people with narcissistic personality disorder wind up in Social Security disability exams? Well, think about what happens when you get sick. Your family treats you as if you're somewhat special. Say, for example, you get influenza. Nobody's going to expect you to do the normal household chores that you would do when you're well. You're going to get extra sympathy and care. The normal rules won't apply to you. Of course, everything will revert to the status quo when you recover from the influenza. But what if you have a permanent problem, such as you suffer a stroke? Well, then you'll get some permanent special considerations. If, for example, one of your chores used to be mowing the lawn and you become hemiplegic from a stroke, it's likely that another family member will assume the lawn mowing chores, or the family will decide to pay for a professional to mow the lawn. Also, if you're acutely ill and you're somewhat grouchy and disagreeable, people will make allowances for that, saying, "Oh, he's sick. He's just upset because he's sick. He's really a good guy." So think about the person with narcissistic personality disorder who discovers that if they assume the sick role, they get special consideration. The normal rules don't apply to them. They're allowed to be more disagreeable than average. They get special benefits that a healthy person would not. It's very attractive to the person with narcissistic personality disorder, and therefore they'll assume this role to an exaggerated extent or to a completely factitious extent, decide that they deserve to be paid for staying home and not working, and file for Social Security disability benefits. So what happens when Social Security schedules such a patient for a consultative examination? Well, it's a setup for problems. First, the narcissistic patient wants to be in control. They want to be the one in charge. But in a disability exam, it's the doctor who's in charge. The narcissistic person goes to the doctor's office. The doctor is in charge of the examination. The doctor directs the questions, and the doctor instructs the patient on the things to do during the examination. The patient is not the one in control. Second, the patient's authority is brought into question. Let me give you an example of what one very narcissistic patient said to me. They said, "I don't understand why I have to go through this exam. Social Security should just take my word for it that I'm disabled." Third, the narcissistic patient may have a whole group of people dancing to their tune based on the fact of their implied disability. But the doctor is going to question that, going to put the whole notion that the patient's disabled into question. That's a threat to the patient's existence. These folks have often enslaved partners or other family members to do their bidding and take over all of their chores based on the concept that they're too sick or injured to do so. Finally, even if the doctor doesn't verbally express skepticism about the severity of the patient's physical problems, I think that's often conveyed in body language or in subconscious ways of communication. The patient feels the doctor thinks they're faking or exaggerating. And these patients tend to erupt into narcissistic rage against the doctor. So what is narcissistic rage? It's rage expressed against a person who goes against the narcissist's mode of life, their specialness, the rules don't apply to them, their need for admiration. Now, if a normal patient with a physical problem thought that the doctor was skeptical, they direct the doctor's attention to the physical problem because it's real, it's there, and the doctor just may not have realized that. But with the narcissistic patient who's exaggerating or making up their physical problems, that won't work because the more they direct the doctor's attention to the supposed problem, the more the doctor's going to realize it isn't real or it isn't as bad as the patient claims it is. So what do? They change the subject from the disability to ad hominem attacks. They attack the doctor personally. The doctor's a racist, the doctor's a misogynist, the doctor hates veterans, etc., etc. And unfortunately for the doctor, there's no defense against such accusations. It's impossible to prove that you're not a racist, or that you don't hate women, or that you don't hate veterans. So how to deal with patients with narcissistic personality disorder? Well, after a lot of trial and error and many failures, I've come up with the suggestion to go into robot mode. Act as if you're an emotionless robot. Don't react to the patient's anger or sense of self-importance. Don't question the patient. If the patient exhibits functional, non-anatomic, non-physiologic signs, don't point that out to the patient. Just record it in their record. The patient's behavior is their responsibility, and it's not your responsibility to correct it. If the patient exhibits narcissistic rage, don't react. Remain an emotionless robot. The patient is hoping that you'll get upset and react. I make a note in the record, patient erupted in narcissistic rage when such and such discussed or questioned. Don't give the patient special consideration or special allowances. They often demand that. They demand that the rules be moved or budged or eliminated for them. Just say no. Don't give the patient special consideration or bend or break the rules. These are the rules. They apply to everyone. That's all there is to it. Think of the mnemonic JADE, J-A-D-E. Don't justify, argue, defend, or explain if the patient gets upset about the rules. Don't take ad hominem attacks personally. If the patient accuses you of being a racist or a misogynist, that doesn't mean you have to worry if they're correct. Just shrug it off like an emotionless robot. It's interesting, but I find that about 90% of the narcissistic personality disorder patients do not have serious physical problems making them disabled. A very small percentage do. Well, I hope that's been helpful, and as always, remember, if it happens, it's possible.